Доброе утро, уважаемые участники форума.
Good morning, dear participants of our forum. It's a tradition for our forum to begin the first morning session speaking about the natural resources and the geological industry development. And the majority of Russian regions and our country depends on the natural resources and the development of this industry. So today we have here with us the heads of our regions, head of Buryatia Republic, which depends on natural resources a lot, and there has been one line of development, but today we have many new fields, promising fields, and there is a lot of work to do from my point of view. Speaking about Yakutia, it's a bigger region, a mega region with a huge territory, and I think that Eastern Siberia, Lomonosov spoke about Eastern Siberia as the main field of development for Russia. It was about 200 years ago, and I believe that today Eastern Siberia and Yakutia are the regions which have to be the priority of development for our country. And before the war, from the Demidov period, it was an example of development of solid natural resources, copper, was extracted there before Demidov, and Bashkortostan, I believe, it's also a very important region when it comes to the production of natural resources. We have here the Prime Minister of Bashkortostan here. So today we will speak about the revival of legends. There is a government initiative, very important one, and I would like to comment on that legend, to explain what the legend was. The geology of Soviet Union was very important, very strong, and I would like to show you some numbers and some slides in order to help to the participants of the discussions and our public to understand the three stages of Soviet geology: industrialization, the Second World War period, which influenced a lot the development of industry and the geology in the Soviet Union, and after-war recuperation. So I've tried to compare the investments of our state today in geological exploration, and we're speaking about more or less about the volumes of 1932. Is it enough or not? It's a big question, but I think that the economy in the 1932 was very different from the today's economy, and the challenges were different too. During the war, there was a great increase in drilling and in exploration. We have see that many fields were discovered during the war. The Western Siberian province was discovered in the 40s of the 20th century. In the Soviet period, after the war, was a breakthrough period when the Soviet geology increased 13 times the production levels. There was a strong development of economy and steady growth of all the indicators, and it was the base of the growth. I mean, the geology. We see that there were about 50 research institutions, so we had about 700,000 people who worked in geology, and there were a lot of expeditions in Western Siberia and Eastern Siberia. In each region, there were some unique methods which were created in Russia and Soviet Union. We worked a lot on geophysics, and there were about 30 plants which were producing special equipment for geology. It was a whole industry which existed until 1990s. And as to the financing part, it's a very important part because the exploration requires about 50% of the investments. And if we compare our investments and the investments of Soviet Union, 1.5 billion, and now we see that the difference is very important. The investments of USSR in the 80s and the investment of actual Russia, you can see them on the diagram. Many people say that we've discovered all the fields and all the deposits, but we see there that there was a legend, and we have plenty of work to do, from my point of view, to revive this legend. As to the Ministry of Geology, it existed as a structure which dealt among with other ministries with geology. Today we don't have such a ministry, and there are many people arguing whether there is a necessity to revive this ministry. We have plenty of users of subsurface. And I think that the model which was used in the Soviet Union was quite a successful one. And going to the discussion points, I would like to ask the first question. So many people believe that we've discovered all the natural resources, all the fields of natural resources in Russia, and we've studied all the subsoil. We spoke about it a lot before, and the strategy of use of natural resources which exists today says that by the year 2025 the state won't invest anything in the geological exploration. This is the strategy that we have today. So I would like to discuss it with you. If there is something to look for in the subsoil, or we've discovered everything, so you represent all the regions, different regions that depend on natural resources, Yakutia, for example. So I think that the development strategy of your regions pays special attention to natural resources. So, Alexey, I would like to begin with you. What do you think about it? Your region, Buryatia region, is a beautiful region with beautiful nature, and it's very important task to develop this region. So, which are the basis of this development? Will you work on the development of the natural resources? And if you will do it, and I believe that you'll do it, which lines are the most important for you? Thank you very much. I'd say that it's a very important topic. I will speak about my region, not about all the country. For us, the production of natural resources is one of the main sources of income, and the main taxes we receive from the minery, taking into consideration the climate, the low density of population, and low industrial potential. So we work a lot on the production of natural resources. And this industry creates taxes, creates employment, and this is the main industry for us. So we have to produce natural resources continuously, so we have to go on searching for new deposits, and I would like to comment on some details. In the first place, I will comment on what you've said before. So, in the strategies that we have today, we see that Russia will reduce to zero, down to zero, the search of natural resources, but this is the most risky stage, and it's always a state which invests in the search, because private enterprises won't invest a lot in this field. They usually work there where we have some first encounters, so they do extra exploration, and it's also very risky. So the first step, it has to be done by the state. And I believe that we have to change this part of the strategy. And today we have another challenges. I would like to show you some slides. I won't comment on the amount of natural resources that we extract in our region, but I would like to go to the part of offers that we have. I believe that the offers, we can leave them to the second part, but I would like to ask you another questions. The question is whether we still have some unexplored areas in Buryatia, and what kind of natural resources do we have to search for? Because now we're in the decarbonization area, and there is no sense to look for carbon, for hydrocarbons, although the consumption of coal is growing. So, what are the natural resources that we have to look for in Buryatia? So, what do we have to search? We have to work on the fields that weren't considered promising, because we have new technologies of extraction, of production, and of refinery. We have to look for the metals which are used in all the electronic devices and which influence the digitalization process. And it's quite a promising field. We also have to look for copper, which weren't considered interesting from the point of view of income with the technologies that existed at that times, but today we can work on them. So we also are interested in oil and in gas, but if we don't speak about them right now, so rare metals, we have to look for copper.
За диверсификацию своей минерально-сырьевой
So you are speaking about the diversification of your natural resources. Yes, because usually the traditional natural resources that you're extracting in Buryatia.
О чем настаиваем, о чем взаимодействуем.
And we know that there were only two kinds of resources that you extracted, and you always produced gold. It's a classic field for you. And we also have to think about no ferrous metals. We have to speak about the metals that you have on the border with Mongolia. So you have to look for another kind of natural resources which you have in your soil and your subsurface, and you have to focus on them. That's it, yes. So now I would like to go to Konstantin. You have a big republic. We can have your presentation for the second part of our conversation. As to Yakutia, you have a great diversification. You have different kinds of resources. So which are the most important for you? Which is the priority for you in your strategy?
No doubt, Yakutia is a kind of a region where the mineral and resource basis has specific importance for the entire economy of the country. So given the rates of financing of this sector, and over the last year about 28 billion rubles has been invested in geological industry, so roughly about 2 billion. So it's less than 10% investment we're talking about right now. So right now, you know, the geological maps are being published. So at these financing rates, only 11% of Yakutia's territory has been covered. So more or less, something has remained from Soviet time. But looking at the Arctic region, for example, we understand that Arctic has changed its strategy entirely. We understand that there is the northern sea route, logistics is changing, and of course the coal deposits, hydrocarbons, the Arctic fields have become really profitable right now. So the territory of Yakutia, about 1,000 kilometers of the coastal line, is just a kind of a terra incognita. So right now we can see that we can set up a major industrial hub, not only in Kuchuz, but with the nuclear power station that is we started to build there. We see new opportunities for geological surveys, for new exploration of coal fields. So theoretically, it's a kind of industrial hub that is being set up right now. Well, traditionally in recent time, you've been focused on oil and gas, as far as we understand. That's true because we are growing right now. And just let me say a few words about this. I think we should support as much as we can the junior companies. They have licenses, but unfortunately only a few of them are in the exploration projects. So there are thousands of licenses have been distributed among junior companies. So it's about 70% of them, 10% of them are trying to do something, while 90% of them are just towing the line, so to say. So we need to do something in reality about geology sector in Yakutia. And another important question is of course, the tear and wear of our material resources, both in the RosGeology and the geological companies, because today in Yakutia, talking about hydrocarbons and our projects, what is being depleted in Siberia, we are trying to make up for that. So yeah, right now we see that there's an increasing focus on these resources. We understand that diversification rates are quite high because of coal, gold, and diamond resources in new provinces, new fields. So I believe that Yakutia can really make its contribution to the oil and gas industry. Arctic is also part of your territory, and we understand, so there's a great potential for new discoveries there, and very few regions in the world where we can see such huge potential for that. So now my question is to you, Andrei, regarding Bashkortostan. It's a traditional oil and gas region since the 30s. It's mostly the 30s in the wartime, where the key discoveries were made, and then it grew in post-war period. So your priorities in mineral wealth. So do you think that you will keep special focus on oil and gas, or do you see anything else in Bashkortostan? I just wanted to say, you mentioned a legend, a fable. It was kind of a period of turbulent development in Bashkortostan, and because these deposits were discovered at that time. The first deposit, by the way, 1902, 1904. So these were as when there was some certainty about real mineral sources at this time. But you are quite right that during the wartime and the post-war period was a kind of a fast-growing industry. In fact, most of these accounted for oil and gas. So I think it was the second in the country in terms of oil production. Well, I mean, at that time, apart from Western Siberia, issued by oil, the major deposit that was discovered. So we are going to celebrate the 100th anniversary. Oil and chemistry. So until today, it's a major sector in our economy. It's number one. It continues to be number one. The oil deposit was discovered, oil and gas, so we continue to move in this direction. Right now, we have 3,000 such deposits. 1,600 of them are on the balance sheet, so this is kind of our potential. So we do see the development of Bashkortostan further down the road in this area. The only thing is that exploration rates are somewhat lower compared to previous periods, so we have to pay special attention to that right now, but we've already determined, so when we discuss the question what exactly we propose, we do have a certain technology that can help us to facilitate our development, attracting more investors in this area. As regards the new methods and approaches, in our country, 70% of our GDP is due to the sale of mineral wealth and products. So we have to think about making it a strategic area in exploration and production. We are number 3 in the world, after the United States and China. In this, well, of course, we're lagging behind China in terms of production volumes over the last decade. So the potential of our country is quite high. So you mentioned a number of examples where we can develop and where our country can, really make some accomplishments. And in Bashkortostan, there's a huge potential, and some other territories as well. So we do see that there's a huge potential for that. The Reiser Institute has made research into that, and according to this research, we are ranked 17th out of 120 countries in terms of oil subsoil reserves. But in the quality of our industry, we are ranked 75th, which means that there is some imbalance between these. So it turns out, so we have to bring it to the 17th place, which will be compatible with our potential, so which will definitely strengthen our economy. And due to the recent events, we understand that we have to make use of this because it will provide security and independence to our economy. Import substitution, we can see this in our territory as we have identify the technology and the new approaches, and we do see that this tale, this legend that we've seen, we have to revive this somehow. I'm sure that we can do this within the next 5 years. Thank you very much. Just a brief comment. I think that Bashkortostan has been very well developed in these terms. In 225 already discovered deposits, we can still find some new resources such as copper and zinc. 10 kilometers, a new deposit. In some areas with developed infrastructure, so it's quite attractive. So this way or the other, so we are now going over to the next question, and then we'll see Alexey's presentation. So here's a question that what the state is supposed to do in connection with that. What kind of a system we have to build? First of all, we need to increase the volumes of our investments in tapping, in prospecting operations. So on the other hand, there's another question: are we supposed to create some incentives for our subsoil users. Junior companies, question number three. Shall we attract junior companies, because the world practice shows that not everyone is ready to run the risks in this area. So Russia is unique in the sense that we can use different methods. In Australia, there are more junior companies, or in Canada. That doesn't mean that we are not supposed to use these methods. And also talking about the state investments, of course, in other important issues. That's why my second question, what's your take on that? What do you think about these different configurations? We have different tasks, but all of this boils down to the same goal, just development and growth. The 300 rubles per 1 ruble, that's it's a multiplier factor, multiplication factor. It's a quite high rate, you know, and that's, I think, what Alexey is going to talk about. So your view is very interesting. We will talk about technologies a bit later, but from the viewpoint of these states' role, private companies, whether we should invest in juniors, or we're supposed to increase the geological exploration volumes. So please, Alexey, I know that you've prepared a number of such proposals already. Well, indeed, it's better to combine everything, support junior companies, our private investors and subsoil users, and no doubt the state, the first stage of the primary prospecting is impossible without the state support. It's either oil and gas or gold, but that's going to be like traversing the same Soviet past. And, well, of course, we need to support private companies, and of course there are several proposals here. There are several stages. There are so from between the first application and the first product extraction, 28 stages that the company is supposed to go through.
And 10 of them, you have to repeat them at the stage of prospecting and the stage of the exploration, so I can read it. No, I won't read it. There are plenty of them, 28, but there are 10 of them that you have to repeat first in prospecting, then in exploration. So you have to go through a number of stages to obtain all the permits, and if there are two different organizations. One does the prospecting and the other one begins with the exploration. So there is a sense in it. But when it's the same company, there is no sense in doing it. And you have to save 1.5 years on those procedures. If a geological cycle is of 7 years, a year is a huge saving, 1.5 years. And those stages, they repeat each other, and also we need to speak about the investment support. We have to think on the possibilities of to give to the exploration works the regional support with tax privileges. We have to work on the subsoil law and forest law, because now you have to obtain a license for exploration, for production, a license for earth, for water, for forest resources, because sometimes you get a license for the subsoil, but you don't have license for the forest which you have above. So you have the license, but you cannot use it. And we had to publish a special order from the government of the Russian Federation. So we have to combine it all in one license for all, one window principle. We spoke about it before, and the Ministry of Natural Resources has to offer a complex solution, an integral solution, and I believe that it's a good initiative. We have to have one window for all the licenses. We have to simplify the procedures, and we have to include those projects in regional investment projects list. Now we also can compare those investments with capital investments. That will help a lot with taxes issues, and that will help to attract private investors, to attract junior companies, because if we reduce this procedure time by a year and a half, it's a very good bonus. So we have to go in parallel, the state and the private sector, and the state will have to increase the investments in the primary prospects and the geological exploration of natural resources, taking in consideration the peculiarities of our countries. It's one of the main industries for our country. We have to live with it, and we have to develop this industry. We don't have other solution. So I believe that it's quite comprehensive explanation, and it has a lot to do with your idea, Andrei. Because you also mentioned that idea of having one unique window for everybody, and it will help to save 1 year and a half. And as a cycle is of 7 or 10 years, it's a very good thing, because it will help to increase the rentability of those projects. So I would like to ask you now, you spoke about juniors today, Alexey. And also, I believe that it's a very good idea to consider the expenditure on geological exploration as capital assets, because it has nothing to do with current activities. So it will help to our subsoil users to invest more in geological exploration, and will contribute to the development of the deposits and the capitalization. Sergey, I totally agree with you and with Alexey. I think that those things are very important and we need them. And I would like to add one thing. Speaking about the actual condition of geology and all the administrative procedures which has to do with licenses and permits, we have to work a lot on digitalization of this industry, because we have a huge volume of information coming from the Soviet time, but it's not digital information, and you have to spend a lot of time to understand just what do you have and how can you use it. Speaking about Yakutia, starting from the beginning of this century, we started to digitalize all the information that we receive, but from all the information we have, only 10% is digital. In other regions, the situation is even worse. So I think that we have to work on digitalization. We have to use the big data to work with the geological information. It's of huge importance. We have plenty of information from Soviet period, but we have no access to this data. And even if we have it, we cannot find it. So we have to digitalize this industry, and it will simplify a lot the concession of permits. They also have to be in digital form, because we simplify all of the services that offer our state, so we have to do the same thing with the geology. I understand that sometimes we have some strategic deposits where the procedure will be most complicated, but we have also small deposits, and we can work on a special digital procedure for those small deposits and offer this service as a digital one. And I believe that we as a state are ready for this. So we have all the instruments we need, and we just have to use them in this field, in geology field, and to achieve the result. Andrei. This idea seems very good to me, and we will speak about technology also in the last part of our discussion, because the prospecting technology, the processing technology is very important. All the geology industry is based on the information, but what do you think? I know that you see special opinion on juniors. Do you believe that there are some special ways to stimulate the geological exploration? Even Peter the Great told that we had to support those who were doing the geological exploration, although it was called another way in those time. And those who impeded that process, they were put to prison. So it's a very important line of work, and we have to stimulate it. We have to promote it. And you know, when we divided the energy monopoly, it was done by Chubais, there were some privileges for those investors who were going to that industry. They were offered a period of 10 years without any taxes, and that was done to bring people to that industry to work there. And now we're speaking about geological exploration, we're speaking about geology, and we have no preferences of this kind in this field. So only big players which do understand that there are some fields, that there are some deposits where they will have income, they work there, but there is no stimulus for smaller players. And that's why we have to talk about the role of state, because it's impossible to promote it without the state. We have to create very comfortable rules, stimulating rules for those who come to this field of geological exploration and prospecting. And there, where we don't have such players, the state has to do all the prospecting and exploration work, and we as a state will be the beneficiary of this work and the main user of subsoil. We had a project of shop of ready-to-use solutions, and we offered ready-to-use solutions for private investors, for private players of the market. So we have deposits that we can offer to players, and we can explain him what to do, and many bureaucratic procedures are done, and they understand perfectly what do they buy and what do they have to do. And here the state helps a lot to overcome all the risks which prevent private players from coming into this field. And I'm speaking about small companies, junior companies, which just don't have these potentials that have the big ones. We offer the maximum support to those enterprises, and we also monitor their development to identify the disadvantages of the state system. So we try to find the way to reduce the way they have to come. That's the main task of the state. So you are trying to eliminate all the administrative barriers for the juniors now, but I personally believe that the ecosystem for juniors has a lot of problems which aren't solved, and for now, we just don't have the concept of junior, legal concept of junior enterprise, and we don't have any privileges for them. So it's just a word. We don't have any foundations that support them. We don't have nothing for them. So it's just a list of small companies which have their private risks, and they started to do the geological exploration, risking all they have. And as there is a high probability of having a huge income, but also they bear high risks. So, unfortunately, I believe that we don't have time to discuss the technologies, but Alexander mentioned the big data, and I believe that we will need more than digitalization, because we have data accumulated during hundreds of years. So we have to digitalize it, and we will spend 10 years more on it. We have to work with, to learn to work with unstructured information, and the most important component of big data is the value, because if we digitalize them but we don't use it, it will be the same thing as having it in paper and physical format when not using it. So I believe that we have to think how to do it in the best way. And concluding, I would like to mention the new strategies that were mentioned by all of you. So do we need this new strategy? Because everything that we've discussed needs a complex, inclusive solution with the participation of juniors, with the state, and we have to determine their roles, because now they aren't clear. Alexey. I believe that we have to upgrade our strategy, because it needs just some corrections, some amendments, and I think that we should offer to the government to amend this strategy, and the Ministry of Natural Resources works on it and works on the geology exploration issues. So they pay special attention to it, and I think that here we will come to a good solution altogether. Yes, we do need to change this strategy as the world is changing. We see new transport routes, we see new markets, and we have this huge resource, I mean natural resources that we extract, we sell, and we have to work on the best strategy for the use of those resources. We also have to remember about the sanctions, about new technologies, about decarbonization, and that requires special approaches, big data and sanctions, because they put some barriers, for example, in oil and gas, and it influences more and more. We also see some climate changes. Yes, I agree that we need a new strategy for our industry. We have to develop our potential, the management system of our field, and we have to think on new rules. We have to think on new stimuli for new players, big players and small players, for everybody who would like to do it and who knows how to do it. We have to offer support for small junior companies, and we have to develop the human potential, because we've lost a lot of human potential in geological exploration. And even if the state will put more effort on that, we will need new people. We have to teach them. We have to work on education program for them. We have to connect those fresh from the university specialists with the enterprises. And even if we make this decision today, we will have to spend about 10 years on the preparation of new personnel. So it has to be a strategy for 20-25 years, strategy to recover this geological exploration field, and we need the strategy to come to a new level, which today is a legend, but we've had this level before. Thank you very much. We spoke about the staff problem, the personal problem. This year in Siberia, in Far East, all the enterprises that work with geological exploration and extraction of natural resources, they had a huge deficit of qualified personnel due to the growth of 10-15% of exploration and production. They had a huge lack and deficit of personnel for to cover that growth. So. And it reminds me the 60s of the 20th century, where those jobs that were very popular, like the geologists, the physicians, and we have to revive it. We have to bring it back because there is a huge demand and it's a complicated job. So we will end our session now. And resuming, I would like that we all believe that we have to update the actual strategy in order to take into consideration all the actual challenges, all the factors which affect it, and this strategy has to identify the most important lines of development and to determine the natural resources we need to produce, because there are some kinds of natural resources that we are buying 100% of them. So I'd say that their prospect is a question of national security. We have to update the strategy, as I said, taking into consideration all the factors that we've mentioned. Thank you very much to all of you, Alexey, Tsydenov, Aysen, Nikolaev, and Andrei, Nazarov, for their clear proposals and for their personal attention, because I understand that this industry is very important for each of your regions, and you work on that personally. It's very important. Thank you very much for your work here in the studio and for the work you do every day in your regions. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks to all the participants. Bye.